Welcome to VSOW, and welcome to this deep dive, crafted specifically for you.
Yeah, hello.
Today, we are plunging deep, I mean really deep, into the world of Better Call Saul.
Mm-hmm.
That acclaimed spin-off that, well, it took the universe of Breaking Bad and kind of twisted it, didn't it? Into something really profoundly unique, but also somehow instantly familiar.
Absolutely. It wasn't just, here's what happened before. It felt like a complete dismantling and reassembly of a character we thought we knew.
Exactly. Jimmy Mcgill, Saul Goodman,
Yeah.
whole different layers.
Right. And to help us navigate this really complex landscape, we've pulled together a pretty insightful stack of sources. We've got some deep analysis of that powerful finale, the one everyone talked about.
Oh, yeah? Saul gone.
We're looking at its cinematography, too, which was just, well, stunningly good. Highly praised.
Definitely.
And there's a great source that tracks Jimmy McGill's character evolution. It's fascinating, often quite heartbreaking, step by step.
And the legal side.
Yes. We've got some perspectives from actual practicing lawyers on, how much legal realism was actually packed into those fictional courtrooms and law offices. It's quite illuminating.
Okay, so our mission for this deep dive, it's ambitious, but I think it's clear. We want to unpack these sources with you, really get a handle on what lifted Better Call Saul from just being a spinoff to, well, one of the most compelling TV dramas of its time.
Yeah, we're going to zero in on that masterful exploration of character, right? And the consequences, those complex, often devastating ripple effects.
And the craft, the sheer artistry that went into making it.
For sure. And along the way, maybe uncover some surprising insights into, well, human nature, and perhaps get a more nuanced view of the legal world as the show presented it.
Absolutely. So get ready. We're going to dig into specifics, maybe some unexpected connections, and hopefully a few of those aha moments about how this series has worked its magic, turning this comedic side character's origin into, well, a six-season tragedy.
Yeah, it really was something. Let's get started.
Okay, let's unpack this. And maybe counterintuitively, let's start right at the end with the finale, Saul Gone. We have this NPR article, and it dives straight into what it calls the episode's core question. It points out that, by the end, the biggest question wasn't really if Saul Goodman or Gene Takovich or whoever he was at that point would finally go to jail. That felt, well, after that run-in Omaha, it almost felt like a foregone conclusion, didn't it?
It did, yeah. The sources really suggest that the inevitability of his arrest, his incarceration, it was becoming glaringly obvious.
Yeah.
Especially after, everything leading up to his capture as Gene Takovich.
That great life in Omaha.
Exactly. Working at the Cinnabon, just this soul-deadening existence. But he just couldn't resist, could he? Falling back into those old patterns.
One last scam.
One last desperate scam. And, well, that's what got him caught. The walls were always going to close in on him eventually.
And here's where it gets really interesting, and the NPR source, it highlights this so well. The pivotal role, the person who exposed Gene, it wasn't some, brilliant police work like you might expect from this universe.
No.
It was Marion, the seemingly sweet elderly lady played by Carol Burnett.
Legend.
Right. The article notes what maybe started as just a fun cameo, it became one of the most crucial, tense moments of the whole series.
Yeah.
Her realizing who he was, threatening to call the police, using that life alert button.
Oh, that button moment was incredible.
That was the direct catalyst for his capture.
Yeah.
It wasn't about the cops catching the brilliant criminal mastermind. It was about this seemingly vulnerable person seeing right through him and just holding him accountable.
That's such a key point because it shifts the focus, doesn't it? Away from the external capture, the how he got caught, and back onto the internal struggle. The NPR analysis argues that what the finale really hinged on, the deeper, more central question this show was built to ask all along, was whether Saul Goodman, after everything he'd done, could he ever develop a genuine conscience?
Right. Would he feel real regret?
Exactly. Real unvarnished regret for the immense damage he inflicted, especially on the people closest to him.
And this connects right back, doesn't it, to something Peter Gould, one of the creators, said way back.
Yeah, the NPR article mentions this. Back in 2015, when the show was just starting, he asked, very simply, why be good?
Such a simple question, but...
But the whole series, all 6 seasons, really dedicated itself to exploring that, didn't it? From every possible angle.
Yeah.
We watched Jimmy McGill's journey, which wasn't really a straightforward evolution, was it?
No, more like a devolution sometimes.
Right, or maybe a complex process of increasing dissonance. The man he presented himself as, the sharp, confident lawyer.
Saul Goodman.
Yeah. He grew further and further apart from the toxic, devastating consequences his actions created for literally everyone in his orbit. The show just meticulously tracked the cost of not being good.
So the finale, it circled back with such power to answer that initial question. It wasn't ultimately about the jail time, the legal penalty.
No, it suggested the ultimate reason to be good, the real reward, is maybe just having a clean conscience.
For Jimmy, the final confrontation wasn't really with the judge or the prosecutors.
It was with himself, wasn't it? A
Yeah.
desperate last-ditch effort to escape that crushing moral weight of his choices by finally facing them head on.
Okay, so let's dig into that moral weight, those choices. Let's follow the roadmap from that YouTube transcript, the one analyzing Jimmy's character evolution.
Right. That source presents the idea that the show, really at its core, it's a study of ambition, morality, and that classic debate, isn't it? Can individuals overcome their inherent vices, or are they just prisoners? Prisoners to circumstance, to their own nature.
And that source, it proposes this really fascinating concept that life's tests, those pivotal moments, they don't necessarily change who you fundamentally are. Instead, they kind of work to narrow your options. They strip away the alternative paths, revealing, solidifying the precise version of yourself that exists right then.
So the big question becomes, did Jimmy's experiences actually shape him into Saul Goodman? Or did they just reveal the slip-in Jimmy, who was always there, lurking beneath the surface, just waiting for the right conditions to fully break out?
It's kind of a chicken and egg thing.
It really is.
Yeah.
So let's trace that journey, stage by stage, like the source breaks it down. Stage 1, characterized by Jimmy's desperate struggle for respect. And this is almost entirely motivated by his relationship with Chuck, his older brother.
Yeah, we get those flashbacks to his childhood in Cicero, Illinois, influenced by his dad, who is maybe too trusting, easily taken advantage of by con artists.
Which, perversely, led young Jimmy to kind of admire the scammers, right? The ones who won't by taking shortcuts. He saw the world as divided, wolves and sheep, and he didn't want to be a sheep like his dad.
He felt he was learning lessons his dad never understood.
Exactly. And this ties right into Slippin' Jimmy, that nickname.
The slip and fall scam.
Literally, yeah, from that ridiculous insurance scam. But a Reddit source we looked at points out the name took on this much deeper symbolic meaning. It represented this core part of him always slipping through cracks, getting away with things, living on the edge.
And that early act, stealing the money from his father's store, about $14,000.
Small but critical. The source argues that wasn't just petty theft. Influenced by seeing others succeed dishonestly, it kind of opened a mental door for Jimmy.
Made it okay.
Yeah, normalize the idea that maybe stealing is okay in small amounts if you don't get caught. And crucially, it created immediate, lasting tension and deep distrust with Chuck. Chuck saw it not as a mistake, but a fundamental flaw in his character.
Because Chuck was the opposite. Total faith in the rule of law. Believed without it, chaos reigns, good people get hurt.
While Jimmy saw his dad not as good, but as a soft touch, weak, everyone, including Jimmy himself, felt okay taking advantage of.
Until Jimmy gets arrested in Cicero, forcing Chuck to step in.
Right. Chuck bails him out, but on one condition. Jimmy has to change, fundamentally. This leads Jimmy to choose the so-called righteous path. Moves to Albuquerque, gets that job in the HHM mailroom.
All motivated by earning Chuck's respect, he genuinely tries, at this point, suppressing the scams.
Working in the mailroom, he secretly puts himself through law school, correspondence course, passes the bar, feels like he's done everything right, followed Chuck's path, believes this is his moment. He'll finally be welcomed by Chuck, by HHM.
Devastating the H point. Chuck secretly tells Howard Hamlin not to hire Jimmy as a lawyer at HHM because he can't be trusted. To Jimmy, it feels like this incredibly unfair punishment after he'd made the effort, done the work, tried to walk the line, only to be shut out by the very person he was trying to impress.
The consequences of that betrayal, that rejection, they were profound. They set him on a totally different path. Forced into solo practice, scraping by as a public defender.
Working out of the nail salon?
Literally, yeah, in the back of a nail salon. Despite being a licensed attorney doing things right, he feels trapped, isolated, like a prisoner in this legitimate life he tried to build.
And the source makes this great point about his perspective versus a typical public defender's.
Right. For most, seeing people face jail reinforces sticking to the law. But for Jimmy, the ex-con artist, being in court wasn't just seeing what they did wrong, he was analyzing how they got caught.
seeing the mistakes he could have avoided.
Exactly. So instead of pushing him away from crime, it ironically kept him circling back to that old mindset.
This period, the source calls it Jimmy bargaining with the world, trying to get legit cases like the Kettlemans, but willing to bend rules, manipulate things.
He even took that bribe from them initially, remember? But give back. The source suggests even then he was trying to stick to some kind of code, still partly motivated by not letting Chuck down completely.
This is the Mesa Verde class action. Huge case. He builds it, works on it with Chuck.
Chuck convinces him to hand it over to HHM, saying it'll be done properly. This should have been Jimmy's moment, right? The culmination of his efforts on the righteous path.
But no, the ultimate rejection. HHM wants the case desperately, but they still don't want Jimmy.
That's when he finally knows definitively Chuck is the barrier. Chuck will never, ever see him as a real lawyer, leading to that brutal line from Chuck.
You're not a real lawyer. Slipping Jimmy with a law degree is like a chimp with a machine gun.
Oof. Just brutal. So the source concludes, the total failure of that stage one motivation, earning Chuck's respect by going straight, it leads directly to regression. Without that anchor, he retreats to what he knows, finds validation back in scamming.
Reconnects with Marco.
Yeah, falls back into it. And Marco calls him the Miles Davis of scams, which, in that context, probably felt more like real praise than anything Chuck ever gave him.
Which is just sad, really.
It is. And that painful realization, plus Marco's death soon after, pushes us right into stage two. Chuck's rejection, Marco's death, Jimmy's adrift, no anchor, no crutch.
So his motivation shifts. No longer about Chuck's respect.
Right. Now, the source identifies he starts suppressing the scamming to more of a hobby, and this is driven largely by his growing relationship with Kim Wexler.
After those losses, he almost quits law entirely, right? Feels like Chuck was the only thing keeping him straight.
Yeah, with Chuck's lack of faith exposed, he feels this perverse freedom, permission to bend the rules more now.
And Kim encourages him not to quit, suggests Davis in Maine. And he starts revealing his true self to her, makes her his accomplice in those small scams.
Like the Ken wins thing at the bar. The source highlights how sharing that excitement, the moral ambiguity, it really ignites their romance. Kim becomes his new validator. She knows his good and bad sides, and importantly, she still respects him.
So his motivation shifts, pleasing Kim, building a life with her, a life that can include parts of his real personality.
He takes the Davis and Maine job, likes the perks, but hates having a boss. Conflict with authority, just like with Chuck. Starts pushing limits, filming those sleazy commercials without permission.
Then lies to Kim about it, says Cliff Maine approved them, which causes trouble for Kim, gets her demoted at HHM, shows how his actions, even trying to succeed for them, still hurt her.
And Chuck sees this pattern, tries to warn Kim, tells her about the stolen money, argues Jimmy can't help himself, everyone's left picking up the pieces.
Which raises that core question again. Can Jimmy not help himself? Or did people like Chuck, the Kettlemans, never give him a real chance, the support needed to actually change?
It's the central tension. Jimmy leaves Davis and Maine, wants total autonomy, then convinces Kim to turn down a partnership offer and join him in their own side-by-side practices.
A huge leap of faith for her.
Massive. The source emphasizes she's one of the first people to truly believe in him, invest in their shared future despite his past.
But then, Chuck strikes again, uses his influence to steal Kim's biggest client, Mesa Verde.
Which feels like a profound injustice to Jimmy. The guy who undermines him is now hurting the person who believes in him. Fuels that desire for revenge against Chuck.
The revenge.
Yeah.
Changing the address on the documents. Knowing Chuck's condition would make him melt down in court.
Which he does. Utter humiliation. But the source adds, Chuck also brilliantly figures out exactly what Jimmy did, how, and why, which just reinforces Chuck's belief that he was right about Jimmy all along.
And then Chuck takes it nuclear, weaponizes Jimmy's affection.
Fakes that breakdown to get Jimmy to confess on tape. Chillingly calculated. The source points out, Chuck values his reputation, being right, more than his brother. That act is a profound betrayal for Jimmy.
Amplifies all the past perceived slights.
Chuck then uses the tape not just for bar discipline, but tries to get Jimmy criminally charged for destroying it. Chuck thinks this is Jimmy's only chance total compliance, hands tied, like in the mailroom.
But it backfires spectacularly.
Completely. Instead of forcing obedience, the betrayal makes Jimmy resent the law itself, sees it as Chuck's tool of oppression. He starts actively defiling it as revenge against his brother, pushing him fully into stage 3.
Stage 3. He's on probation, desperate for work, just trying to keep afloat, sets up his solo practice, and starts using the name Saul Goodman again.
A name he hadn't used since Cicero. The source notes this is him deliberately reopening that mental door to the old methods, distancing himself from Jimmy McGill, the name tied to failing Chuck. His main motivation now, not losing Kim, she's his anchor.
But the world keeps pushing him. Marginal clients shortchange him. Feels exploited even doing legit work.
So he fights back, not always legally, starts using the threat of legal action, leveraging the power of being a lawyer once reinstated as a weapon, seeing the law not as noble, but as power, a tool.
Driven by stopping the losing streak and proving Chuck wrong, which he does masterfully at the bar hearing.
Breaks Chuck on the stand, manipulates his condition, humiliates him, proves the electromagnetic hypersensitivity is psychosomatic.
Ultimate revenge. But the consequences ripple. Jimmy learns his malpractice insurance is going up, sees another chance to hit Chuck.
Subtly guides the insurance company to the transcripts of Chuck's public meltdown, knows it'll make Chuck's premiums skyrocket too.
Which leads directly to Howard pushing Chuck out of HHM, the firm Chuck built.
Stripped of his identity, isolated, alienated, Chuck burns down his house, dies.
And their last conversation. Chuck's final words.
Gut-wrenching. In the end, you're gonna hurt everyone around you. But the truth is, you've never mattered all that much to me. Vindictive and tragically prophetic.
Jimmy buries the grief, masks it with bitterness, pretends Chuck didn't matter, even fakes remorse to get his license back.
And the critical moment, the instant his license is approved, that defiant grin, tells the clerk he's practicing under the name Saul Goodman.
McGill is dead to him.
Associated with Chuck, rejection, betrayal, failure. Saul Goodman is his own way. No rules, no restrictions, no appeasing anyone. Point of no return. Entering stage 4. Full Saul Goodman.
Stage 4. Driven by pure ambition, ego. Saul Goodman emerges, works for anyone who pays, actively seeks criminal clients, offers discounts to nonviolent felons, building an empire on the fringes.
Then Howard makes that peace offering, the job at HHM Jimmy always wanted.
But Jimmy's reaction, bowling balls at the car, public meltdown.
It's explosive. The source explains he still sees Howard as a conduit for Chuck's judgment, sees the offer as condescending, limiting. He doesn't want a job at HHM anymore. He wants to be bigger than HHM, bigger than Chuck, than Howard.
And rejecting it like that permanently closes that door.
Permanently. And by portraying himself as this connected fixer, he creates a reputation he has to live up to, which inevitably leads him to working for the cartel.
And Chuck's warning about the destructive vortex, we see it with Kim.
Tragically, she initially joined the small scams for fun, connection, but his full embrace of Saul enables her darker impulses. She starts actively screwing over bosses, enjoying the con, becomes complicit.
The source points out the duality. Jimmy McGill, who cares about Kim, versus Saul Goodman, driven by money and ego.
Yeah, like when he rug pulls Kim on a scam payout, Saul takes over, prioritizing his gain over their partnership.
So when the cartel comes calling again, asks if he wants to be in front of them, their lawyer.
Any sane lawyer says no. But why does Jimmy say yes? The source argues he spent his life being undervalued, dismissed. Chuck, the Kettlemans, Howard, never taken seriously on his terms.
And that scene at the scholarship board meeting, pivotal.
It's so powerful. He watches these pillars of the legal community dismiss a deserving student with a past mistake, despite her trying to redeem herself. Reinforces his belief that the inner circle, the HHM types, will never truly accept rule breakers.
His advice to her later, chilling.
You're not going to play by the rules, cut corners, and you are going to win.
Connects right back to Chuck's cruel words. You've never mattered. By embracing Saul, working for the cartel, he's desperately trying to prove he can matter, even if it's in the criminal world. Proving Chuck right about who he'd become, but wrong that he wouldn't matter.
Then the desert trek with Mike. $7 million for Lalo. Near death. Leaves him shaken.
Seems to genuinely doubt his choices then.
And Mike's warning.
Stark. Pivotal. We all make our choices. They put us on a road. You think about getting off, but eventually you're back on it. Describes that inescapable trajectory. Once you're in with those people, it's incredibly hard to get out. Others label you, disassociate, limits your options. When Jimmy gets back, his courthouse colleagues are distancing themselves. Heard he scammed the court for the cartel.
Should be a sign, right? An opportunity to course correct. But the source notes, that door to the legitimate world is closing fast. Like Chuck, they won't believe he can change.
Puts him at that crossroads.
Mm-hmm.
Retreat to being a broke, distrusted lawyer, or continue down the destructive road that's welcoming him, offering power, money.
And the source compellingly argues, Kim is the only one who could have made him turn back then. He'd do anything to keep her safe.
But sensing he might push her away, Kim redirects their energy towards Howard Hamlin.
Tragically, targeting Howard becomes a twisted distraction from the cartel trauma, a way to regain control in a safer arena, the legal system, and crucially, it bonds them. The source notes they're never more connected than when planning that scam together. Us against the world, systematically destroying Howard's reputation.
And then the ultimate consequence, Howard's death.
Devastating. He confronts them just as Lala Salamanca reappears. The enforcer Jimmy helped free.
The tragic inevitability. Ignored all the warnings, Chuck's, Howard's. Howard's murder in their apartment is the undeniable result of the choices made in this stage. The destructive vortex finally consumed an innocent.
Which brings us to stage 5, the final phase. Saul ascendant, Gene hiding, James McGill redeemed.
After Howard's death, Kim leaves, quits law, divorces Jimmy, can't bear the guilt.
The last person of meaning abandons him. The source suggests, with Kim gone, nothing's left for Saul but work, money, ego. He mirrors Chuck's focus on law and reputation, but instead of upholding it, Saul abuses it, mocks it, twists it for profit.
Leads him right to Walter White. Becomes a complete criminal facilitator.
And then the crash. Walt's empire collapses. Saul's world comes down. Forced into hiding is Gene Takovich in Omaha.
That black and white life.
Stark. Soul-deadening. The source notes the visual choice symbolizes life drained of color enthusiasm. Stuck at Cinnabon. This is his clearest chance to go straight. Finally prove Chuck wrong. Show he can change when stripped of temptation.
But then he gets recognized by the cab driver.
Has a chance to run again. Disappear. But the source notes, just running isn't enough. Gene's life is meaningless. He craves control, excitement, validation found through scamming. The pattern repeats. He starts running scams in Omaha.
Highlights that never-ending cycle. Tries the righteous path. Wavers. Innate vice. External pressure. That deep need to prove he's good at something. Since the legit world never fully validated him, he keeps returning to proving he's the best slip in Jimmy.
And that scam targeting the man with cancer, particularly dark.
His accomplice hesitates, robbing a dying man. But Jimmy can't let it go. Why?
The source asks, pure ego, vicariously getting one over on Walt, who also had cancer, or subconsciously, does he want to get caught? A final act of self-sabotage.
The darkest moment isn't just the scam, it's when it goes wrong, and Gene considers violence against the victim.
Shows how enabling criminals chipped away at his soul, blurred his lines, Mike's fast track straight to hell.
All leads to getting caught as Gene. Unavoidable fate, really. For a guy who spent his life in courtrooms, normalizing prison for others, avoiding it became a dangerous game.
And even caught, he's still brilliant at the game. Immediately negotiates, gets it down to an astonishing 7 years.
But then he hears about Kim.
Here's she took responsibility. Confessed everything about Howard in an affidavit. Risking her own future, he likely learns her final advice. Turn himself in. She's facing her past, her lies, something he's always avoided.
And that changes something in him.
The source proposes he finally loses faith in his ability to ever really change, to escape being Slippin' Jimmy, accepts he's the guy who can't resist, can't stay straight, realizes he's never paid the full emotional price, always dodged responsibility, always got one more chance.
Leads to that courtroom confession.
Powerful, cathartic. With Kim there, he orchestrates that, performs one final act, goes against the plea deal, the testimony, throws away to 7 years, purges himself, lays bare everything, his role in Chuck's downfall, Walt's empire, Howard's death.
Surrendering himself to the brothers' altar, the legal system Chuck revered.
Exactly. By accepting the full 86 years, he frees himself from the guilt, the performance, the running. And in that act of radical self-acceptance, responsibility, he finally earns back the name James McGill.
Saul Goodman was corruption, lies. But taking responsibility reclaims McGill, gives it dignity.
Right. And that final scene, sharing a cigarette with Kim in prison, quiet, poignant, brings us back to Gould's question, why be good?
The answer seems to be for a clean conscience, finding peace by facing the truth.
That's a core component, especially in the finale. But the sources also push us to consider the external factors. What if Chuck had supported him? mentored him, given him that chance at HHM.
What if the legal community hadn't seen early mistakes as irredeemable?
The sources argue those small collective choices by others played a huge role in putting Jimmy on that path. And tragically, he kept accelerating down it because everyone seemed to reinforce the idea that he was that type of guy.
Let's talk about regret in the endings. The time machine question Saul asks Mike and Walt.
Right, Walt nails it. Saul's really asking about regret. The one decision they'd undo.
Mike's is specific. Taking that first bribe as a cop. The choice that corrupted his path.
Walt's is also clear, complex, walking away from gray matter, ego, pride, leading to bitterness, ultimately crime to prove his worth.
But Saul's answers, when he asks himself as Gene.
Tellingly shallow, as NPR notes, always about money, better scams, coming out on top. Compared to Mike and Walt, you see what's missing. Genuine regret over harm caused to others. His regrets are only about himself.
The YouTube source adds that Jimmy's tragedy isn't one single moment of regret, like Mike or Walt.
No, it's dozens, hundreds of small decisions, compromises, betrayals, stretching back decades, Father's store, HHM, Chuck's Kitchen, a lifetime of small regrets pulling him away from James McGill.
So that final confession wasn't just about avoiding consequences. He chose 86 years over 7.
Right, it was performative, yes, but driven by a real need to take responsibility, especially with Kim watching.
A public purging of guilt, radical honesty,
Yeah.
freeing himself. And in that moment, the source argues, he proves Chuck both wrong and right.
Wrong because he was capable of change, of admitting truth, something Chuck denied. And tragically right because he never would change, never take responsibility until forced into that corner with Kim witnessing it.
Beyond the character study, the show's artistry, the cinematography. The Studio Binder article highlights this.
Absolutely. Widely acclaimed. The article details the strategies used by cinematographers like Marshall Adams, Paul Donachie, mastery of lighting, framing, focus, camera movement. BCS just excelled visually.
A key strategy, mixing extreme close-ups, like the chipped world's second greatest lawyer mug,
Symbolizing his Arrested Development.
with those sweeping, extreme wide shots of the New Mexico deserts, emphasizing scale, isolation, long journey.
Yeah, and they even had that distinct style of paired close-ups and conversations, creating intimacy, but sometimes subtly showing distance, too. Purposeful choices.
Marshall Adams is quoted talking about shooting in New Mexico. Hard to point the camera at something you don't love.
That landscape, even sparse, is captivating. Focuses attention on characters, themes, but they were equally masterful shooting interiors, using visuals for mood, character state.
The lighting was crucial. Often used motivated lighting seemed natural from lamps, windows, but enhanced for dramatic effect.
Like using harsh window light to spotlight Chuck, leaving others in darkness. Chiaroscuro, light dark, like Renaissance paintings. Visually emphasizing his rigid worldview, his isolation.
In artificial light, too.
Yeah.
Saul's garish office, the strip mall, bright, harsh fluorescence.
Created that almost carnivalesque tone, right? Supported his showman, huckster persona, a circus-like vibe.
Fascinating technical detail. Breaking Bad shot on film, BCS mostly digital.
But those black and white Gene scenes, shot on film, deliberately matching Breaking Bad's aesthetic, visually linking Gene's fate, Saul's end, to the original series. Gilligan said seeing Saul's office on film again made them misty, shows the power of those choices.
And the montages. Masterful. Not just for pacing, but as a stylistic device, conveying complex dynamics without dialogue.
Think of the Jimmy and Kim montages, often doing mundane things, suggesting closeness. But the composition often uses frames, lines to visually divide them.
A visual paradox. Closer than ever, but compositionally separate, diverging. Gives the imagery such depth.
Even the Cinnabon montage, Gene's routine, visually impressive. Framing builds oppression. Frenetic, trapped feel via rapid cuts, forceful camera movement, rack focus, Dutch angles. Paul Donachie's work making even routine feel suffocating.
And the black and white in the Gene scenes isn't just a filter, it's thematic. Low contrast, silver tone. Reminiscent of classic, stark films. Maybe Ingmar Bergman exploring similar themes. Isolation, inner lives.
Shifting gears now, the legal landscape. We've got insights from lawyers on Reddit and that Advisory Excellence article.
The article notes Albuquerque itself is significant. Diverse legal system. Native American federal state law. Multicultural. A complex backdrop.
And the lawyers on Reddit, they say the show's portrayal of legal practice, courts, firms is remarkably accurate. One called it among the best they've seen in fiction.
Any inaccuracies felt deliberate, for plot or character, like the meth color in Breaking Bad.
Right. The legal jargon makes sense. Key plot points hinge on actual legal issues, Sandpiper, influencing the class rep. It's not just window dressing. It parallels and drives the character and cartel stories.
Kim's career path associate, partner, solo pro bono, quitting, felt realistic in substance and timing.
There was debate about Chuck's situation at HHM, handling his mental health issues. One lawyer from Canada noted lawyers there fear-seeking psychiatric help due to risk of disbarment. So HHM keeping Chuck on seemed maybe unrealistic from that view.
But another lawyer countered. HHM would know their reputation would tank if Chuck sued, motivating them to manage it internally even if not standard elsewhere. Adds realism.
What about Jimmy's hustle? Dumpster diving, elaborate stings. Is that realistic?
A lawyer with 15 years experience said yes, that level of hustle is part of the job if a lawyer chooses it. Some hustle, some wait for clients.
And they contrasted Jimmy's methods with Kim's, her diligent weeks of calls to land Mesa Verde, called that one of the most realistic scenes. Shows different approaches. Both can be needed to find big cases.
Courtroom accuracy. Generally good, inconsistencies mostly minor. For drama or comedy. Kim convincing a client to take a plea was seen as spot on.
One minor critique. Some dialogue felt a bit like exposition for the audience, not natural attorney chat.
More significant perceived inaccuracies. Registering Saul Goodman and Associates as a DBA. Unlikely in most U.S. states. Attorneys usually practice under their own names.
And the initial Wexler-McGill office setup, skirting the line of presenting as partners when independent. Plausible if they clarified they were separate attorneys sharing space, referring clients.
The Advisory Excellence article also explored why lawyers might be drawn to New Mexico's portrayed. Emphasized community connections, personal relationships.
Less anonymous than big markets. Unique blend of legal traditions, creative problem-solving opportunities, encouraging diversity, making a difference for underprivileged clients.
The tagline, Better Call Saul itself, the article argues, captures that view of the legal system as a safety net for people in trouble, desperate for a way out.
And Jimmy's resourcefulness, finding loopholes, adapting. Seen as demonstrating creativity, adaptability, albeit ethically compromised aspects present in the profession, especially outside big firms.
Okay, let's bring it all back together. Compare the endings. BCS versus Breaking Bad, using the NPR and YouTube sources again.
NPR draws that stark contrast. Walt meets a violent end in his lab. Saul Jean is caught, facing his fate in court.
Different fates, but a fundamental similarity. Both shows about men forced, finally, to confront terrible truths about themselves.
Admit the damage caused, accept consequences, not just legally, but morally.
NPR contrasts this with other anti-heroes, like Tony Soprano, or maybe the show reveals they were flawed all along.
But Breaking Bad and BCS tell a slightly different story. The anti-heroes brought low not just by external forces, but by the weight of their own choices, the need to finally face the toxic truth, a painful admission, often to those who loved them and saw it first.
Like Gilligan musing about Walt. Was he corrupted? Or was the ruthless narcissism always there, just waiting to emerge?
Which is why Saul's time machine questions about regret hit so hard. He's really asking, what's the one decision you'd undo?
Mike's. The first bribe. Walt's. Leaving gray matter.
But Saul's answers, as Jean, tellingly shallow. About money, scams, coming out on top. NPR notes comparing them shows what Saul lacked. Genuine, self-aware regret over harm caused. His regrets were only about himself.
And the YouTube source adds, Jimmy's tragedy isn't one big regret. It's hundreds of small decisions, compromises, betrayals, Father's Store, HHM, Chuck's Kitchen. A lifetime of small regrets.
Emphasizing that final confession wasn't just about avoiding consequences he chose 86 years over 7. It was about taking responsibility, purging guilt, especially with Kim present.
Admitting everything Chuck, Walt, Howard, freeing himself from the internal prison, and in that moment, proving Chuck both wrong and right.
Wrong, because he was capable of change, admitting truth. Right, because he never would until forced, with Kim watching, confronting the devastating truth of Saul Goodman.
So let's recap this journey. We dove into the finale's core question. Conscience, regret. We traced Jimmy's complex evolution, devolution choices, pressures, betrayals shaping his path to Saul, then back to James McGill.
We looked at the craft, the stunning cinematography, lighting, framing, montages elevating the story, and got insights from lawyers on the surprising legal realism in the show's Albuquerque setting.
We compared BCS's poignant ending with Breaking Bad's explosive one. Found similarities in confronting truth, accepting consequences, but highlighted Jimmy's distinct redemption.
Ultimately, this deep dive shows Better Call Saul is way more than a spinoff. It's a profound, detailed exploration of human choices, the paths they create, whether we can escape our nature, especially when external factors narrow our options.
Which brings it back to you, listening. What does Jimmy's journey reveal about the choices you make? How do circumstances, others' actions, influence your path? What does taking radical responsibility mean in your life?
And a final thought to chew on, building on these sources. If Jimmy's trajectory shows how small choices and external factors can narrow our paths, make destructive outcomes feel almost inevitable, how much real agency do any of us truly have in becoming the precise version of ourselves that exists today?
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive.
If you enjoyed this conversation and want to dive deeper into more topics like this, please consider subscribing to VSOW, liking this deep dive, and leaving a comment with your thoughts and questions. We genuinely love hearing from you and continuing the conversation.
Thank you for listening to VSOW.